Hello and welcome to the 110th episode of Growing Up Geek, the weekly podcast for geek entertainment and nostalgia. My name is Brad and I'm joined as always by my brother Rob.
You must spawn more overlords.
The Hive cluster is under attack.
Hive is under attack.
What I always loved about them was how gooey they were. You know what yeah, everything is birthed out. Nothing is constructed. It's all just sort of disgusted.
And Protoss, on the other hand, like cha-chunk.
Yeah, a super advanced race versus an extremely
Everything is
gooey
clean
race.
and sterile.
Yeah. Are you excited about that? Starcraft 3?
Starcraft 2?
Excuse me.
It really feels like it should be 3 by now.
By now, yeah.
What?
They're working on the trequel.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, no, well, and it's gonna come out. Like, I just found out, I guess, that it's called Wings of Liberty, is like the first episode.
They keep adding on to what this game is going to be.
But that's very indicative of the video game industry right now. But yeah, the beta just opened up, and I'm kind of just perusing around to see if I can get into it. But that reminded me of those sound clips that are forever ingrained in my brain.
We require more Vespine gas.
We require more Vespine gas.
Yes. So, hey, everybody's watching the Winter Olympics, right?
No.
I was going to say, my wife is really into it. I've kind of casually watched. But last night something geek-related happened, so I figured I'll bring it up, which is one of the Japanese figure skaters got on the ice, and then the announcer, you know, they always give little stories about their background and their life and everything. So he gets up there and they say he is the 17th descendant of the Japanese warlord Nobunaga.
Okay.
And I thought, yes, and just like the warlord, he is a wizard on the ice. He is going to carve some figure eights.
He is a level 40 wizard.
Yeah. No, it's just like, can you imagine his warlord ancestors staring at this man doing these fanciful dance moves across the ice? It's kind of his own warlord.
Just castrates himself right there.
But the geek part was that the guy said Nobunaga, most famously known from the Super Nintendo video game series Nobunaga's Revenge, and I thought, really? That's it? Like, not history, but the Super Nintendo video game series.
I think I fought him in Jade Empire.
Right, yeah.
This guy, I don't even know what that game is. That's not famously known.
Not really, no. But I guess it's like, hey, kids.
Was that like the trequel to Montezuma's Revenge? Like they were just diving into like failed empires and attach revenge onto the end, and you got a video game.
Are we establishing trequel now as a word?
Yes.
Because treacle is a word. If you ever watched Alice in Wonderland, it's disgusting stuff.
Ugh.
You don't want to eat that. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get right into it.
Bang.
What have you been into this week?
Well, obviously this week I've been playing more Mass Effect 2.
Yes.
So just gonna throw out a pro, and I'll see if I can come up with a con. Ooh.
Well, if you can't, don't force it.
I know, that's kind of awesome. But no, this week I kind of realized how cool the Cerberus network is in this game. Is
that the email system?
Yeah.
That's all I've heard. I saw the Penny Arcade about spam.
No, yeah, well, it's actually a separate thing. Cerberus Network is actually a really cool idea because it's something that you only gain access to if you buy the game.
Oh, okay.
New. All right? Don't buy it used. You can't rent it. You can't get it through eBay. It's one of these solutions they've come up with to try and get more money into the pockets of the developers and not the overpriced pawn shop that is GameStop. But this is actually, I think, a cool solution to it, which is give people access to content for free.
Hey!
Hey! I'm already paying $60 for this game.
Right.
So why not have the advantage of me saving that money that I don't have to pay for DLC, at least certain DLC.
And this is better than a Target exclusive Shaun White snowboarding level?
Nothing is better than that.
Oh, excuse me.
But yeah, so far they gave you a new crew member who's actually nothing to laugh at. He's pretty cool. He's got like an Australian accent. He's got a scar. He's a really unique character. Like for as little flushed out as he is, because he is a downloaded character, he's actually pretty decent. He's not like a palette swapped, whatever Shepherd.
he'll be flushed out of the airlock.
Oh, actually, there's you do get access to a garbage chute airlock also.
All right, I sense some renegade coming up. Yeah.
Send this out.
Closer toward the kill zone, please. Mitch, I've been meaning to have a conversation with you right about here.
Stand here.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Also, they had a level which is kind of spoilerific, but it's related to the first game, and it's kind of something that, man, it'd be hard to do without in the narrative of the game concerning like wrapping things up with the first game.
Right.
And then lastly is they've released armor and weapons and stuff like that. But what's been cool is this is normally stuff that I would see like, get it for $5 or whatever, and I'd be like, I'm not going to spend any more money on that. But with this password, I'm able to get that all for free. And then in addition to that, the Cerberus Network hub, which is on the main screen before you start the game, has this constantly incoming news feed, which they're clearly updating. Like, they have somebody hired to write these things and basically take news stories that are going on in our world right now, and converting them into like the future tense. It's really cool.
Yeah, so, like this did happen.
Yeah, like on Valentine's Day, they're like, billions of Earth people gathered today to celebrate the ancient ritual known as Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's cool.
And then they're like, certain alien cultures would like to adapt it for its romantic qualities, others for its profitable qualities.
Oh, that's cool. So is this causing you to spend more time in the game, basically?
Well, it's causing me to actually, spend more time like reading this
text.
Like it's that's the thing, is like it's really peripheral.
Yeah.
But it's really cool, and I feel like, okay, there is an added value now to buying the game new, and I do agree with this. I think there should be more initiative to make games different or better if you don't use these shady loopholes to get them.
Right.
And especially if you're paying full price, you should get something more out of it. And this whole thing for like free DLC if you pay full retail price, I think that's perfect. Because you're saving money in the long run if you're willing to spend this extra money.
Yeah.
So that's one little nugget about Mass Effect 2 that I'm really liking.
Sweet. Well, I know that you and I have both this week been into the Windows Phone.
Yeah.
But we haven't actually been inside of it yet.
It's the Windows Phone 7 series.
Yeah, which is a bad name in total.
Yes.
But Windows Phone is a good name. I guess the 7 series just delineates that this is,
Do you know what would be a great name? The Zune Phone.
Yeah, I bet people thought that's where it was going, and that's not far off, because this whole thing, it is based on the Zune interface. If people haven't seen this, it's pretty cool, because Microsoft could have, been too afraid of Apple and just sort of copied what Apple did, copied what Android did, which admittedly is kind of like copying what Apple did. Instead, they sort of went back to the drawing board and just created kind of a new idea based around this home screen with hub icons of your most used content.
They have this tile interface, which is really clever, and maybe the next best thing to the card interface on the Palm Pre for multitasking, because now you got all of your feeds, and I love that it's customizable.
Right.
Like the guy I watched the whole 22-minute walkthrough of it, but the guy was showing like, look, this box right here I made, and it's for my wife. So anything my wife is doing or whatever, it'll notify me, and so I realize as I'm saying this sounds very like controlling.
Well, no, but it's kind of cool. It
lets me know where my daughter is
at all times. No, you're creating basically a customized page of things that you care about.
Right.
Rather than putting a bunch of apps onto one page and saying, here's everything I can do, and I'll go into that app. It's sort of like tying multiple functions together under one category. Yeah.
In
Interesting.
a way, I think it's addressing a new emerging problem with these phones, with all these apps.
Right.
Is like
cluttered.
This whole exactly. There's an app for that. There's an app for that. There's all these little things that you're just opening and closing programs to get to.
Right.
And it's like, I don't want to have to open a weather program and then close it and then open a news program and then close it and
Right,
Facebook.
exactly.
They're like, what if it's not apps, it's feeds, it's information, you know?
Right. Like if you stare at your home screen, if I stare at my home screen right now, I have to press the weather icon and then see the weather. On this thing, you see the weather on the home,
Right.
right next to a thing that says how many emails you have, how many voicemails you have, what Bob is up to, what the news is that you care about. You can get away a lot quicker, just by glancing at that home page.
So in that sense, the notification system is
Right.
integrated into the start page, which
Yeah, I have a
that's
feeling.
cool.
Yeah, it is cool. I have a feeling that this is going to require a steeper learning curve than something like the iPhone, though, because what you see is what you get on the iPhone. Press weather to display weather.
Right.
This is going to require a little bit more explanation. How does Nana make a weather icon on her homepage? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
It's almost more geeky. It lets you have more user control.
Yeah, which is, I mean, that's Windows, and always
Sure.
kind of the criticism is Windows will give you some liberty, and because of that, be a little harder to use. Apple will very much not give you much liberty and control the product tightly, but at least it'll be
easy to use. Yeah.
concise experience, and your experience is the same as another person's.
Yeah, that's absolutely accurate, I think. I wanted you to talk about Windows, Xbox Live integration, because I'm still a little bit foggy on that. If you can illuminate the fog.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm still kind of foggy on it too. And
Maybe we all are.
I'll do my best, but I think that there's not too much news yet about it.
Okay.
What they've shown is, first of all, there is Xbox Live on this phone,
Which sounds awesome when you first hear it.
There's an icon that
Yeah.
you push, right? Your avatar will appear when you push that, and so that's kind of like a nice little graphical nod to feeling like Xbox Live, and that there will be achievement points that you earn through playing games on the phone,
Right.
that will sync up to your overall achievement thing.
Right. And that's the real question: is what are these games? And the initial response, the initial thought is, oh my God, am I going to play like Shadow Complex on this phone? I doubt it.
Yeah, that I don't think is going to be the case. You're probably going to get, a whole new list of, games for Windows Phone 7 Series Live.
Mm-hmm. Once again.
And yeah, exactly. That's totally a committee decided name too.
Right. Don't forget this term.
Yeah, make sure you say series because we want them to know that it's a series of phones,
right?
Not just one.
The Beatles present Windows the Phone, rocking the band.
Peter Jackson.
Yes. So overall, I think this is what most people are saying is this puts Microsoft in a position to be one of the big three. If there can only be three, we don't know how many there can be, but
I don't know.
Google, Apple, Microsoft sounds like a fair, summation of the competitors.
Yeah. Well, okay. Just going back to that Xbox Live integration is definitely a killer app in a way because there is more of a micro console feel to that than there is to even the iPhone, which people have been trying to embrace as no, this is a legitimate gaming thing. But it's like, how more legitimate is it whenever your phone is in a way tied to your console? It legitimizes the video games on this phone far more. And to have that product control where Microsoft is going to have to okay something a little more than just here's the 70th version of Tetris that gives you 1,000 achievement points with the first row that you clear. Zune, however, that is really exciting to me. The Zune integration, because basically you have a Zune now in your phone, and they showed the guy was like, "See, I'm really into Jack Johnson, and I own these two albums, but if I wanted to, I could push here." And now it's here's all of his albums, and I can listen to any of them just by pushing them. And I'm like, yes.
Yeah, Zune already got the music interface down pretty good, so I think they were wise to just sort of cop that into this.
But this is over 3G, 4G, like
Yeah.
this is actual anywhere you are.
Right.
And how do you feel about that? Because you have Rhapsody.
Yeah, I actually didn't know that feature existed. I'm going to have to look further into that. But I think all music services should be subscription based. So I say bring it on. Like
Yeah,
if Zune could provide a better experience, I will absolutely do that,
and Zune isn't just music, it's also videos,
Right.
movies, music videos, like
Yeah.
podcast, radio. It's all in there. And
Yeah,
I think like that's nice.
And speaking of it all being in there, we're going to need to talk about the hardware here for a second because you're going to need some pretty powerful hardware to do some of this. The phone that the guy, who by the way, the guy demoing this, I swear they pulled a Jay Allard on this guy too.
Well, he's from that corner of the Microsoft campus, so.
Right, yeah. It was like, I could easily see you being a 50-year-old man, and then they added this smooth black wig on top. But
put an earring in you.
Yeah, exactly, and a t-shirt underneath the sports coat. That dude was handling some sort of a brick-like phone device that looked sort of like the Droid in terms of its like unshapeliness.
Right.
I think I heard the name HTC mentioned. Do you know if the hardware is specific yet?
I believe it is not yet specific. I'm
Okay.
sure that there's deals going on, but they haven't announced a specific product.
Yeah.
Everything is being kept very generic.
I like the idea
And-
of the just central Windows button. And then the side buttons were search, which was Bing search. No problem
Right.
there as far as I'm concerned. And then the left side was like go back.
Yeah, I mean that it looks very nice for that reason, and that's why that whole page, that's kind of what you get when you push the start Windows button. But that Bing integration actually seems kind of cool.
Mm-hmm.
And that sets it apart a little bit. I mean, it's weird, but like as cool as Google is, it's neat to see a phone that's using a different service.
Yeah, although they're going to need to integrate Google Maps somehow, I think, if they're really going to
Bing
compete.
Maps is cool. I mean,
Okay.
there's some neat stuff that Bing Maps does that even Google Maps doesn't.
Right. They were showing that off too, like traveling with that, and I'm like, I don't know if I'd want to leave the safety of Google Maps just yet.
Right.
But hey, it's a huge step. And it was so weird to read the like instant change in people's emotions on blogs, just like, and it's the most amazing thing. And I'm like, really? With no cynicism.
Yeah. It actually does stand out as a very different phone. I watched the guy do something cool, which was, always you want to see like something impressive
Right.
when they're demonstrating something that's like functional. And he was showing the on-screen keyboard, and he's like, give me something to type. He's being interviewed. He's just give me something to type, and I will type it as fast as I can. And she's like, okay, how about I am sitting here being interviewed by Catherine Foy, and he's like, all right, and he just as fast as he can just runs it, and it gets everything but just and her last name Foy. Just everything it got correct.
Oh, dude, I live and die by that autocorrection. I type nothing correctly on my phone.
Yeah. And then he was like, well, we can see here that instead of it put ab. So, and he just pushes that, and then a list of things pops up, but it's very like graphically integrated.
Yeah.
And he's like, and he selects the correct word, and then he selects, whatever, and then he can choose like which social networks to post this to.
Yeah.
And then he sends it. I don't know. I thought that was actually more impressive to me than a lot of stuff, because it just showed that something as kind of janky as, the touchability of the keyboard and how well that's going to work,
Right.
which you're going to rely on, is they have that polished and nailed down on this phone.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. And it's cool to see how forward thinking a lot of these phones are, saying, or I guess you could say current thinking, which is realizing what people actually do and then basing it all around that.
Right.
So it's going to be cool to see more about that, and that is the Windows Phone. Headline, it doesn't suck.
Yeah. And who knows, maybe they'll reveal like a Zune phone, which is, Microsoft made hardware
Maybe,
that
yeah.
uses this software. Pull a Google.
Yeah, exactly. Good strategy. So, hey, moving on, this week I've been playing Bioshock II, a game that you and I were certainly skeptical of for a long time.
Many people, yeah.
Many people. I really feel bad for 2K Marin, because it almost seems like the more you love Bioshock, the less you want this game.
Right.
And that's sort of how I approached it. It was like, well, I guess I'll play Bioshock 2, but it's, not at all the excitement, of, my God, the sequel to, one of our favorite games, And I think that's because Bioshock sort of didn't feel like it needed continuation, much like The Matrix or just another like solely perfect contained story, unique world.
Yeah.
So I'm going to just real quickly say the setting of this game. You were commenting that a lot of people probably know too much about the setting. I actually didn't. And so if anyone's like me, you actually play as one of the original Big Daddies. The game begins by showing you in the heyday of Rapture, when it's populated by happy people, and you get to see the little sister that you are linked to. You're put in charge of protecting her, and then we sort of fast forward to post Bioshock 1 Rapture, which is falling apart basically. And instead of Andrew Ryan, who is now dealt with, you have Sophia Lamb, who is a lady that has sort of picked up on the failings of Ryan and is trying to better Rapture under a new sort of philosophy. And that ties in with your character, and I won't spoil it. But that is the gist of it. I will say, when the title screen came up and said Bioshock 2 and the music played, which is fantastic the whole way through the game, the music is great.
Good.
I got excited. It was like right before Star Wars Episode 3 came up, on the screen. That moment right before it came up, I finally got excited. It was like all the cynicism and everything melted away. It's like, we're about to see some Star Wars. And that's how this was. It was like, all right, I'll play a Bioshock 2.
Good.
But I kind of wanted to open it up to you because you haven't played it and you're coming from the skeptic's corner. Just kind of fire away, things you're interested in. I won't spoil anything unless it's a minor spoiler.
Okay.
What are you curious about with this game?
Well, I guess the big question is, does it justify its own existence?
Right.
Yeah. Because it, much like Terminator 3 or like that's the worst case example, because I'm worried that the existence of this game is more of a business proposition than a creative proposition.
Right.
They were talking about like early earnings calls after Bioshock 1 was a huge hit.
Right.
Were like, well, we will be looking into maybe making a Bioshock MMO. Like
yeah,
it was just that ridiculous and detached. And I'm looking at this and I'm saying like, okay, did this have to poo all over Bioshock 1
right.
in order to justify its existence? That kind of like Judgment Day was inevitable,
right?
Kind of situation. Or does this say, no, this goes deeper and ties to the first, but it's still its own story? Like, what would you say?
Well, it kind of reminds me of Alien Resurrection, because that was completely business fueled. It's like, bring back the Alien saga, but we killed Ripley.
Right.
I don't care, bring it back somehow. And Joss Whedon was tasked with writing that script, and what he did was basically take all the scraps of something that was like a nightmare scenario of making a story and made a very, I think, admirable story concept out of it, which was, we clone Ripley, and then you have the idea of the half alien human hybrid. I mean, I think he made a pretty masterful story out of that.
Yeah.
I think you have a similar situation here. Like I said, I don't envy 2K Marin, because it's like, hey, want to make Bioshock 2? No, not really. Okay, well, you're gonna. Well, what they did was a very admirable job. I don't get the sense of a money-grabbing sequel. When I play this game, I get the sense of a very respectful, high-quality game. If you had never played Bioshock 1, this game would blow your mind.
Cool.
Especially because the level design and everything is top-notch Bioshock level design. It's not the sort of mod feeling that you got from like Half-Life 2 Episode 1, where it's like, all right, we just took the same models and threw them in. Granted, you're going to retread a ton of territory. You're going to splice. You're going to run into a voice chatter that comes over top of it. There's going to be little things you pick up. You're going to run into people that can disappear all of a sudden and reappear. So you're going to retread similar territory, but God help them, they really, I think, did the best that they could given the, like I said, nightmare scenario. And at the end of the day, that's a universe that still doesn't exist in any other game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Rapture is still a place unlike other game settings, and I was just tempted once again to explore every little nook and cranny.
How are those nooks and crannies, by the way? I mean, because revisiting Rapture,
right?
Are there any moments in this game that kind of give you a sense of shock and awe similar to how it was in the first game? Like, did they manage to somehow throw in a surprise or something like, I bet you didn't realize this about Rapture, like,
Right.
because whenever somebody goes invisible in the first game, you're like, holy crap,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
or
Sadly,
the first encounter with a Big Daddy,
right,
like, that's
exactly.
like crazy.
Yeah, and the encounter with a big sister doesn't fill that void.
Okay.
And that's not that feels more like the money
Right.
sequel.
Bigger, better, faster.
Right, exactly. That's what Big Sister feels like. But to me, the smaller moments, there are some revelations about Rapture in here that I thought would be completely at home in Bioshock 1 and probably should have been. And a
Yeah.
lot of those deal with Ryan, which is sad because Sophia Lamb is the new villain, and sadly she doesn't, I don't think, hold up to Ryan as well. She's cool, she's well thought out. There's a good story there, but it's not quite the same. If I could, just minor spoiler, my favorite thing I've encountered so far is something called Journey to the Surface,
Okay.
which is an amusement ride that Andrew Ryan had set up to give the inhabitants of Rapture a feeling like they were actually heading topside.
Wow.
I assume for those times when they got tired of living underwater. And what it is, it's basically like a demonization of everything up top. Here's big business. Here's the corporate, man, the money grubber. Here's the scientist. Look, he's trying to achieve something. Instead, the man keeps him down. You know what I mean?
Huh.
And
So-
it's done in a very Disneyland ride fashion, but you get to see all of his philosophy kind of coming through.
Good.
That I thought was really cool.
I realize I sound kind of weird like here just because I'm like, good.
But that's exactly what I'm thinking as I'm playing it. Is like, come on, don't just be crappy. And this is a very high quality game. I think it's bigger than the first game in terms of the levels.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot to explore, and I found that where the arrow points you, it's like the main path.
Yeah.
There were so many things that were not connected at all to that arrow on the side that were just really cool. There's also a lot of levels that just sort of go by, and it's like, all right, like you said, no big revelations that couldn't have been in the first game. They would have probably been at home in the first game.
That's it. So the settings are cool. How's the art direction with like the new content? Would you say it fits well? It matches?
Yeah, it's pretty perfect. They know what this universe looks like, and they've done a pretty much job with it. I like seeing some of the staple things, like the poster for the New Year's party with that famous rabbit mask. Seeing some of those things like completely tarnished and like dirty in the corner. Even the hint of, I entered one level where there was a painting of my plane crash. Like your character's plane crash.
Oh wow.
From the first one. I thought, no, that is interesting, and I don't know, how that quite ties in later, but there seems to almost be certain people who may be worshiping the first game's protagonist. If that's the case, then I think there may be some really juicy morsels toward the end of this game. Unfortunately, I don't know what those are, and even if I did, why would I say them?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a world that you want to be in. It actually made me sad that there isn't a game like this minus the shooting. Because I think that this, I'm a big fan of Myst. The idea of exploring just this great world is the part that still pulls me in about this. The shooting, I could take it or leave it, and it's not the world's greatest first-person shooter, but man, it's such a cool world.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a bit about the gameplay there, or the action aspect, because they added dual wielding to this game. And as always with sequels, they're trying to put a little more polish on it. So do you feel like the action is a little more fun, a little more fluid, or are you just in generally like turned off by action?
Yeah, everything is kind of gun based as far as I'm concerned, because you get all these attachment hands, like a rivet gun and a launcher and a flamethrower. There's a really cool spear gun that it's great because you pin people to the wall, then you go over to them and pull the spear out, and it adds it back to your ammo. Cool. So it's essentially like infinite ammo as long as you go. And when you pull it out of their head or whatever, they sort of fall down to the. It's kind of gross.
Wow.
But I'll tell you. Speaking of gross, dealing with splicers with a drill hand is pretty messed up. But at first you're like, yeah. But then you're almost like, all right, let's do this. And this lady is looking me in the eyes, just screaming. You know how they yell that stuff like, don't get me to eat your pudding,
Right.
You just hear something in the back. They completely still do that. But she's like staring at me as I bash her party mask in, and then like the most hideous face is underneath. And I'm still bashing it in. It's like, I almost feel bad for her. But
So you're
Drill hand requires fuel, unfortunately, and I think that's kind of a downside.
oh
And part of Bioshock is that you require first aid kits. There isn't an auto heal. That was almost surprising to me considering other games. But it's like you need fuel for your drill arm. You're going to need health. You have to go to those Circus of Value type vending machines
yeah.
and make sure that you're stocked up. So it can be challenging.
Okay. I also want to talk about you being a big daddy and your interaction
Right.
with the little sisters.
Yes.
As I understand it, there's little sister kind of missions or whatever that people have said have added an interesting gameplay mechanic because now you have a reason to set traps and to kind of do things because now you're in a situation where you're protecting a character rather than just protecting yourself. And how have you felt about that? Like being a big daddy, how does that affect as far as the narrative concern? Are people nervous to talk to you and ask you to do stuff for them?
Yeah, it's interesting because most of the time I'm not thinking that I'm a big daddy when I'm playing it.
Oh.
I'm thinking that I'm the guy from the first game again. You know what I mean? Like
so you're not really conscious of that fact.
I'm not conscious of it a lot of times. Now, when the little sisters come into play, and they're sort of like mini missions, you put them up on your shoulder, and then they guide you to, look, Mr. Bubbles, Adam, and then and they call you daddy a lot. And there is this father and daughter sort of theme running through this game. It's actually kind of almost a sad thing since you're a relic of prior Rapture and Lamb is sort of the new Rapture, you know what I mean? And you're just sort of like an old-fashioned model, but you're protecting these daughters. It sounds cool on paper. I didn't think about it a whole lot. Unfortunately, the parts where they gather the Atom, you're always attacked while they're gathering Atom and you have to protect her. It sounds like it would be cool, wow, you have to protect them. It actually kind of annoyed me. Because you know that there's going to be like just a horde of these hideous splicers coming in. So
all right, well maybe you shouldn't have children.
Right, exactly.
Right.
Maybe it'll confront players with that grim reality. I don't know.
So the last thing I want to ask you about, and this is obviously the most important thing to me, the first game was well noted for its incredible audio design. And you mentioned the music. I just want to know, does this, with the audio logs and the old-timey music, and just does it live up to that standard set by the first one?
Absolutely. Like I said, if you want old standards, if you want old songs playing, I am a man with a fish in his hand, or whatever.
My favorite.
Yeah, as
Frank
an example.
Sinatra.
If you want that stuff, it's all over this game. And that's the thing that draws you back into the universe is like all of that stuff. Perfect. The audio logs, they're almost too close to the first game. They're pretty much exactly what you had in the first game. But they're the same quality. So like I said, I think the only criticism about this game is that we've been through a lot of this before. Sadly, I think it's like this 5-star game that just happens to have already been done before. And so what can you say?
Right. In this case, being better isn't necessarily being better.
Yeah. The normal thing to say at the end of a review is, for fans of Bioshock, you should check this out. Unfortunately, we know, because we are fans, that that's actually made it harder to want to play this. But I will say that revisiting Rapture has been fun. It has been cool. I don't think you'll feel like you wasted your time.
It sounds to me like they were making a sequel, and they were conscious of the fact that sequels are best when they cater to the fans who like the first game.
Right.
And they actually were able to identify who those people were and what their concerns were and to address that. So
yeah, the setting they've chosen, the character they've chosen you to be, and everything, it's the best job that you could have possibly done. Like I said, under the circumstances, I really feel like there probably isn't a better Bioshock 2 that you could create with all... I know it sounds exaggerated, but think about it. Like, it's really a bad situation to have to make this sequel. Rapture is done. Like, it's already been dealt with. So what are you going to do except try to maybe, change it up in these ways? And I think it feels like a brilliant mind behind it rather than kind of a money mind behind it. Although it isn't Ken Levine, it really I think could have been.
Yeah. Is there anything that you could have thought of doing that you think would have made this game better?
I don't know. The trailer convinced us all that it was going to be taking place like on the mainland. That it was going to be something where, and we even saw those newspaper articles like girls kidnapped in the middle of the night and all that stuff. No, this is a game in Rapture, totally in Rapture again. I would have, see, I would have thought it would be cool to go outside of Rapture, but maybe that's not Bioshock, and that's probably what they dealt with.
All right, so rent it, buy it, pass it.
Yeah, I'd say to rent it if you're curious about it. I don't think you'll be let down. Unfortunately, the guy who one of the Call of Duty designers or somebody recently said that it sucks. I think that's way exaggerated.
Whatever.
Again,
yeah, what is that?
I've got nothing but love for these guys for the job that they did. I think it's really high quality. So I'm gonna stop saying the words high quality.
Well, I think you've said it just enough. All right, cool.
Yeah.
So I think I'll give it a look as soon as I'm done perusing about the galaxy.
Exactly. And before we close out our show, we always like to get a little nostalgic and reminisce about growing up geek. And hey, it's Valentine's Day week, or at least it was.
Or Chinese New Year, and also President's Day.
Exactly. So many crazy things, the Olympics, all this stuff at once. But you and I now have ladies in our lives, but there was a time before that. Can you think of an early crush or something that you had in grade school? Maybe this is a sore area. I don't know.
I mean, back then it was all for attention. That's what affection was. It was your parents gave you attention, right. Friends gave you attention, and then when you start to get attention from girls who are the enemy at that age,
right.
It's interesting, and that's why usually it first manifests itself as boys hitting girls. Because it's their way of getting attention from them, and they don't understand. They're like, I want this girl's attention for some reason, but I hate her.
Yeah, I feel like early crushes that stand out for me, there was a girl on the bus with red hair. And there was even it was weird, but we would crowd around her, and if she had even left something behind on the bus, it was a fight to get that thing. It's really messed up in retrospect. Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's something that she had licked and thrown to the side. It's keep it, maybe that sounds like
me a piece of the book.
Exactly. It sounds like the early steps of becoming a pedophile or something.
Well, I mean, you can't because you're a kid, so.
Right, exactly. Oh, it's not wrong when you're a kid.
No,
there you go.
Nothing's wrong.
That's what I always say. That's why I dress up like a kid all the time. Just kidding. Duh. That's funny. We were talking at lunch today about if somebody said, "What's your major?" What are you majoring in? Oh, pedophilia. It sounds like a major. It's do they tell you? They tell you advanced techniques. How to when you lift a child, how to lift with your knees to not injure your back.
Oh boy.
Oh man. But
so this Valentine's Day has gone awry.
Yeah. I remember the girl that you brought with us to see Pokemon.
Yeah.
Yeah, and was an early girlfriend of yours.
And that was a relationship almost strictly based on, you like anime too? All right.
Yeah.
Not a thing to base a relationship on, turns out.
Yeah, but hey, if you find a girl, if you're way into anime and you can find a girl into anime, that's a good thing. I talked to a girl at work that actually dresses up for cons, as anime characters, and I'm like, your boyfriend either is supportive or he also dresses up. And she said, yeah, he goes dressed up too. And I'm like, there you go. You pretty much have to find that match. Fortunately, you're not way into anime.
Yeah. But yeah, I understand what you mean. It's being supportive and stuff like that. And
I think that when you're a geek and you're into these things, and this conversation always comes up with my geek friends, you need to at least find someone who supports that. At the very least, they don't have to be into it as well. I almost think that sometimes makes it worse. Right. If a person's just into every single thing you are, because I think that the perspective of someone who's not is kind of cool and refreshing. But I think they have to at least support it or understand it. Because if you have to fight just to hold your interests all the time, it can get very old very fast.
I think whenever you're consciously aware of okay, this is cool what I do and I have my reasons, then this thing is ridiculous that I do, and so
we all acknowledge
it.
And
then if she's along those same lines and she's like, okay, that's ridiculous, and all right, that's cool.
Right.
Check out on Instant Stream. There's a movie, a documentary called Second Skin.
Okay.
And it's about MMOs and also MMO addiction. So the kind of people who play these games seriously,
right.
And
oh my god, the saddest thing ever is that you knew a guy that lost his marriage over Star Wars Galaxies.
Yeah, no, well, I knew my friend Pat was in a guild with a guy, And yeah, he was playing Star Wars Galaxies so much that his wife left him.
It's like, no, not for that game.
Not for that game.
Please, not like this.
And that's the geek reaction.
Right.
You know, it's not like, oh, we're sad that he left his wife over a video game.
I know.
It's like he left his wife over that video.
We put aside that a man lost his wife. We're just like, couldn't it have been a better game? Something with a 5-star rating.
Exactly.
Oh
something
my god.
That scored World of Warcraft, at least, if not EverQuest, or
yeah, something higher quality.
I could even see if it was Ultima Online, the classic, bringing back to the roots.
Well, supposedly Warcraft is listed in divorce-like statements, like over and over again, as a reason for divorce. You got to clear that stuff up front, guys. You absolutely do. Like I know it sounds wussy, whatever you want to call it, but yeah, I mean, this is one of the tips. Is you can't just sneak in Warcraft. It will be noticed.
There are certain parts of your personality that you can't just
you can't hide it.
Hide,
and you shouldn't hide it. And I think this show has largely been about that. You know,
right.
Full frontal nerdity, as we say.
Wow.
But yeah, you know, hey, God bless the ones that have found someone who can support them. I think both of us have. And eye rolls, you know, aside. You know, overall it was a good Valentine's.
Right. I think that the most important commodity geeks can have to try and, you know, get a good relationship is to know themselves well
know
enough.
Thyself.
Know thyself.
And
exactly.
then to take the fire from their hand.
And then place the fire into your hand and then shoot the crawl.
Yeah, shoot the crawl. You know, we're just shooting the crawl.
Send the glaive into the alien invader who has invaded your country, and that's a good relationship.
That sounds good to me. I actually used an app to find our Valentine's dinner spot, our dinner restaurant.
And that's geek love.
It worked out good, yeah. So that's going to do it for this week. If you would like to participate in the show, send us an email. You may do so. Quick shout out to the emails we got over the past week about Lost. A lot of people trying to answer Amber's questions about those pesky Dharma drops, and the answers were conflicting, which was kind of funny. Some people said it was related to time travel. Some people said it was related to the others. Amber thanks you for your answers, but also said she's not sure if she believes you, and that your answers contradict each other. So our email address is mail@growing-up-geek.com. You can follow us throughout the week, as always, on Twitter at twitter.com/GUGBrad and GUGRob. And I think that's going to be it. Once again, my name is Brad.
And I am Rob.
And we will see you next week.